Page 15 has two parts. The first part, you are completing these proportions. They're pretty simple. You don't have to do the cross multiplication method on any of these. The only one that you might consider it is number 2, because you can't easily go from 21 to 14. However, if you reduce that fraction first and rewrite it, you can rewrite it over here after you reduce it, and then you can do equivalent fractions and easily find the value for y. Number 4 is the same. I see that I can reduce that one. Those are some huge numbers. If I used the standard method, I would have to multiply 35 times 27 and 105 times n. I'm going to multiply that, or reduce that, and see how much easier it will be once I do that. I know right away that these are reducible by 5. So I'm going to rewrite this fraction right here by reducing it by 5. 5 goes into 35 7 times. 5 goes into 105 21 times. But I notice that is still reducible. Look at that. It's 21 over 7. They're both reducible by 7. So 21 divided by 7 is 3. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Now I can go from 3 to 27. Let me rewrite that so it looks neater. What I now have after reducing it twice is 3 over 1. Can you believe I reduced these huge numbers, and it's simply 3 over 1. That equals 27 over n. Now this is easy. 3 of course goes into 27 9 times. 1 times 9 is 9, and then n equals 9. Isn't it amazing how much easier that got just from reducing? In the second part, we'll start with number 6. All I'll do is help you set that one up. We'll not solve it together. A recipe calls for 4 cups of flour to 6 tablespoons of shortening. How many tablespoons of shortening are needed for 6 cups of flour? The first thing I have to do, and what sets this up to make it a simple problem, is to write my labels. Once you have your labels correct, then everything else just kind of naturally falls in place. A recipe calls for 4 cups of flour, 6 tablespoons of shortening. So I've got cups of flour, tablespoons of shortening. So cups of flour over tablespoons of shortening. Now, recipe calls for 4 cups of flour to 6 tablespoons of shortening. So now I just simply put my numbers where they need to go. 4 cups of flour to 6 tablespoons of shortening. The information that you have here, you have one piece of information. How many tablespoons of shortening are needed for 6 cups of flour? So you need to figure out where that 6 goes, and then you'll set this up to be a proportion. Once you have 2 fractions, you can then go back up and solve it the way that you solved these. So you do the rest here. Number 7, a tree casts a shadow of 15 meters, while a 2-meter post nearby casts a shadow of 3 meters. How tall is the tree? Okay, so what are the two things that we are comparing? A post is 2 meters, so the height compared to the shadow. Right, so we have height, shadow. A tree casts a shadow of 15 meters. A tree. I know the shadow is 15 meters. It doesn't say how tall. Oh, how tall is the tree? So we don't know how tall it is. The post is 2 meters. The shadow is 3 meters. So what we're looking for when we complete these proportions, that will tell us how tall the tree is. I'm going to put a T for tree. So when you solve this, it will tell you the tree is, and it'll tell you the height. So on this, the only thing we completely did together was number 4. I gave you support on these two. We did most of this together, but you can do the rest. All this work we've been doing on proportions, we haven't done as many with decimals in them. So I'm going to do some with you today that have decimals, and I'll leave some for you to do on your own. It's basically the same thing. Typically, though, you aren't able to reduce, although sometimes you can. On these, you can't. So let's see how you solve these. Number 5, notice here I have 3 over x and 4 over 15. I cannot reduce that. Because I can't reduce that, and I can't easily go from here to here, I will use the standard algorithm. So I will cross multiply. This gives me 4 times x, I'm going to write my work right here, it's 4x. 3 times 15 is 45. When I solve for x, I will divide both sides by 4. That cancels out. I won't end up with a whole number. 4 goes into 45 11 times with 1/4 left over. You can choose to write your answer in mixed number as a mixed number, or you can go back and do 45 divided by 4. Or write it in decimal form. Or 11.25. Number 7. This is reducible, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce that. So now let me, since I can't easily go from here to here, I'm going to cross multiply. I'm left with x equals 5 times 1.5 7.5. X equals 7.5. I have my answer. That was a pretty simple one, simply because when I multiply this, I just get a single x. Number 9, and the last one we'll do together. Notice I cannot reduce. So once again, I'll do the standard algorithm. I get 2.5 times x. 10 times 6 is 60. To isolate the x, I'll divide both sides by 2.5. I end up with 600 divided by 25 when I move that decimal. Remember, you cannot divide by a number with a decimal. 25 does not go into 6. 25 goes into 62 times. Think of that as a quarter. 2 times 25 is 50. 25 goes into 100 4 times. There's no decimal, so my answer is 24. I'm going to write it down here. X equals 24. You can do the rest. You do have the two that have decimals, and you'll solve these the same way that we did those with decimals.